village that we're be developing here in Salinas. And this will just give you a picture, if I can here, of all the partners. I put their logos on this slide here, if you will, but all these partners that are involved in putting together a campus. It's going to be, it'll house about 100 people ultimately. There's going to be a mix of some permanent housing and transitional housing, and this doesn't even have on here the churches that are going to be involved, if you will, coming in and serving from a mentoring standpoint, connecting into the employment community, etc. But all the way from kind of defining our target housing and our mix and the business plan, all the way through to our social enterprise development on the back end. We have key employers as well in the community, as well as the city of Salinas, and so that's where government and so on comes into play. These are all key partners in not only building and running the village, but also in our model with this community. We're connecting to the employer community in a very direct way. So one of the things we're doing with this community is people that and these are people that are coming to live here who have a propensity towards work, towards housing, and they really want to get on with their lives. What we want to do is connect them with employers that have a pipeline and a need for constant employment, if you will. And what we're going to do is actually apprentice people on this campus for about 6 months. They'll spend about half their time working with the employer, half the time with us, on wraparound services and social services and so on. And while they're being apprenticed and learning a job, they're saving some money because they're living in a campus, in essence, where they're at least for the first part not paying rent, and then nominally kind of for the second half of their stay with us. But after the 6 months of apprenticeship and so on, which by the way we're going to use a separate company almost as an employment agency, then they flip over and actually become full-time employees of the employers, and then they can stay with us and continue with housing on the campus maybe for another 6 months or so. But this is really where we get them connected to the community, which is vital. And so this is kind of an artist rendering of what this community will look like. It's got all these tiny homes that are built around here. It's got a couple of dorm-style apartments, which will be used more for transitional housing or respite care, things like that, student homelessness. But this is really a community that's built in the great places in the community that works very well. So that's our vision, and those partnerships, if I may, and forgive me going a little quickly on these, but I thought you'd ask me about how are these partnerships built,
right?
And what are some of the key things we learn. So I'll just say, first and foremost, you got to get involved and act, right? We all know from James that talking about being a hearer of the word, not a doer, doesn't work. So if we're rolling up the sleeves and really want credibility, we need to be rolling up our sleeves and be known by people that will invest time in what we're trying to solve. So secondly is rolling up our sleeves at the most basic level and bringing others along is really a biblical model that I love. One thing I do intentionally, and it's not like I have a lot of time, but I go out every 2 weeks and serve food to our homeless in our campus around the community. And I do that so I know their basic needs and what they're struggling with and everything else, but I really want to stay connected to the mission and what we're all about. But I always intentionally try to bring someone along. This is a very good discipleship model, I guess, as well. But invite someone new who hasn't done this before and try it out, because you know they get hooked and then they see how much more blessing they get than just sitting in an ivory tower. I guess the third is, in every situation where a problem comes up, I always ask myself and our team, who else and what other entities need to be involved? Who has any little impact or big impact in making this work, and it's going to bring both added credibility but also added solutions to the problem. And you saw that again in our matrix of all the organizations for the village that are involved there. But the invitation also shows value to others. If we invite them to the table, we value them. And we listen to them and make sure that they feel like we don't always have to take the lead. Other people should and can. So, fourth thing I do is I make it a point to reach out to other leaders, both in my lane but out of my lane. And I probably talk to at least 3 people every week from across the country or different programs and so on of leaders that are running programs, both because I admire them and love what they're doing, but I want to find out what they're doing really well and how we can connect and do this even better together. So I actually built time into my calendar specifically to reach out to other leaders and connect and encourage them along the way. Fifth is I also call upon others to help make introductions for me. I don't know everybody, but I do know people that know people, and if I need, we need to bring someone to the table, I'll gladly ask, and I'll return the favor as well. Who can you introduce me to, and how can you make a connection for me that's meaningful, and then it, again, kind of shows respect and humility in asking others for help. Two last points: love people. Don't always ask for something. It gets old if you're always called upon to give something rather than just to build a relationship. So in homeless circles, I can't tell you, for example, how many times when you just sit down with a homeless person and talk to them and listen to them, how many times they'll say right back to me, you know, this is the first time I've had someone just sit down and listen to me for 6 months. I don't have anybody in my life, and I really appreciate this because I need that. So I want to be a vessel for healing where I can, and one that listens to people and encourages them and creates some hope. So, and then I guess the last thing I'd add is, you know, this is this is pertinent to Florida as well. Is make sure you play pickleball. Why? Well, I know in Florida, you know, it's a burgeoning, catching like wildfire in California as well. But and I jest a little bit, but I've met at least 75 new friends and acquaintances every time I play in circles of pickleball out here. And I get a chance to share the vision, kind of gain some advocates and buy-in. I had a guy yesterday gave me an article from a local paper that had featured a write-up about the homes we were building in Rancho Cielo in that partnership there. So recreating together is also fun and important. But pickleball is, you know, is the core.
Well, that's fun. That's really fun. Hey, tell us how people can get in touch with you if they'd like to follow up.
You bet. So I would love to chat to any and all who would love to go about that for. I'll throw just a quick up here on the top of the screen is my email and my phone number, and we have a website we're actually reconstructing as we speak, but it's r-3.org. But
you know,
that also has
we don't see that at the top of the screen. I don't think. Do you see it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oops, let me get that. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
put it
thought
in
I
the
shared
chat.
it. I didn't, so forget it. And there you go.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
So one interesting thing too, Glenn, is we're connecting with Salvation Army out here in California as well. We're looking at maybe a 6 to 8 home project here at Salinas to start, but the Western director out here is looking at 11, 15 properties where they might also put some of these. They really want to be in the housing arena and love this kind of this whole model and everything else. So West Coast Salvation Army is also on our radar screen. Some very dear friends that are involved there. So.
That's great. What questions do you all have for Eric? Yes.
Eric,
Ken.
would you be willing to share your flow charts with us?
Oh, you bet. Be happy to. I'll send them to Glenn and have them distributed to you.
All right. Sounds good.
You always start with the end in mind. It's curious, you have a lot of different outcomes going around. What was your original end in mind? Was it employment? Was it housing?
For me personally, and then the team at large, is I got very frustrated with homelessness and how we were treating individuals almost as an adjunct to what we were doing instead of the core of what we're doing. But also started seeing without housing as a solution, you're never going to stabilize people's lives and get them to a place where you can begin to work on them physically and spiritually. And you guys all know, for me, spiritual restoration is absolutely essential in these arenas, and it allows, I guess, me to speak into those circles and to bring the faith community in a very intentional way, which in the past has been almost, again, an adjunct discussion in coalition meetings and things like that. So housing became very important to me, but it also became important that we develop housing in a way that was not, $450,000, $500,000 a unit like some of our affordable housing projects are costing out here. So, we're all in with utilities and land and everything else at about $150,000 per unit, which is really good and affordable. And we're concurrently trying to adopt models where we can actually have equity ownership, and that people moving to these communities can own a piece of the puzzle, if you will, on the real estate front. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Have you seen government laws that restrict tiny housing? Have you run into a lot of restrictions on that end, or are you finding governments are cooperating with you?
We actually intentionally are less and less using the word tiny homes, because tiny homes have a particular connotation of a 400 square foot or less unit on wheels. And wheels are where the problems are with governments, is if you get HUD funding, if you get any vouchers and so on, you have to have a permanent foundation that you put the units on. So they're not so opposed to size, or in fact, they like the size because it's affordable, you can do more high density housing and so on. The only thing that we run into, but we're not building them on wheels, we're putting them on foundations, just making sure that they sit on an actual foundation or pier blocks. We put them on pier blocks because it's a less expensive way to do it, and because we're transporting like manufactured housing, mobile housing, we stick them on pier blocks and then sew them together, if you will, on the site. So actually, it's really catching fire in virtually all communities, but California in particular, where this is a great solution to low-cost housing opportunity.
In making changes to that, did you have to change ordinances through code enforcement with the cities or the counties in order to permit those zonings?
Yeah, we had a big push in the beginning of 2021 where a whole bunch of guidelines were released from the state around ADUs or accessory dwelling units. These are the micro homes, if you will. And those state guidelines really helped a lot because they took away a lot of the kind of artificial barriers that cities and counties were putting up, like things like extra parking spaces, or you had to have a separate water meter, or this, that, and the other. So it really helped not only reduce some of those requirements, but allowed cities to, for example, receive and put in place some standardized plans that they pre-approve that, people pick those plans off the wall or off the website or whatever. You can change color and a few things, but basically if you pick a plan and adopt it, it's already pre-approved and eliminates a lot of the impact fees and the planning fees and yada, yada, yada. So all those really helped from having some of those state guidelines. And then some cities have gone even further to promote ADU production because they see this as one of the key solutions of relieving housing problems that we have in California.
So the state preempted basically the regulations and ordinances for the cities and counties, right, in your city?
Yeah, and sometimes you just got to go to the city and say, hey, this is a good thing we're building. We need 2 ADUs, not 1, and we've got plenty of land and so on. As long as the neighbors say it's okay and so on, can we build 2 instead of 1? Or that's why I like the village communities, because then you if you have to go to the planning commission or some rezoning, they're all for higher density housing and everything else. So if you just get a city council member, this is again where the partnerships Lennon was talking about are critical, is you got to know some city council members or supervisors that will get behind the project. And in fact, this one I was showing you earlier, the city of Salinas got about $50 million coming into their coffers from COVID relief, this, that, and the other. Well, they really like this project and they want to help get behind it, and they're talking about funding up to half, if not even more, of the project cost to get this housing in place. So they're a critical partner, but we've been milking this for 2.5 years with them and talking about the project and meeting with council members, etc. So sometimes you take longer than you like, but once you get there, you've got a friend for life.
Good job.
So basically, state government is approving everything inside the walls of the house as a manufactured home, and local government is approving everything outside the walls to hook up the electricity, the water, the utilities.
Yeah, one of the beauties in your question is when we build homes in the prison or an outside entity in an education program, 2 things happen. One is we can build the homes parallel to the site work being done, so we really cut down on the length of time of a project from start to finish, which is great. And secondly is if you run into a public project where you have things like prevailing wages or other issues that come up, the homes built in prisons aren't subject to the prevailing wages because you're not paying labor, right? So the cost of the homes is not part of your prevailing wage project. It helps again reduce the cost to just the site work. You still have to do site work, and you can still get some volunteer labor and things like that help on that you can contribute to the project. But but really your prevailing wage costs are therefore limited to your site work, which helps a lot.
Well, Eric, thank you so much for all you've shared today. I think you've given our group a lot to think about and maybe some new ways to plan. Well, you always do that. You've got more information than sometimes I think I can take in. But it's great. You had a lot of people taking notes on their iPhone, either that or they were texting. Not sure which. But I think they were taking notes during your presentation. So let's give Eric a hand. Thank you, Eric. Have a great day. God bless you.
Thank you all, so good to be with you, and bless you in your endeavors there. I look forward to hearing great things from you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks, Eric.
Bye for now.
Bye. All right, well, I think I managed to bring up the calendar. Let's debrief a little bit from what we heard from Eric. I'm having a hard time getting this to end. Here we go. All right, good. Let's debrief a little bit. What new things did you learn? What did you hear? What did you learn in this?
Well, we, really quietly discussing that with our partnership with Valencia, with Accelerator Studies, they have a construction element, and the commissioner was saying that they could request, relief of impact fees because of their status. So, it's a partnership with the tech to enhance our relationship in there.
That's good. So, you know, as we get some information, you know, if you want to just get in touch with Eric,
We're gonna go see it.
are you going to go out to California?
Valencia out there, go see it. Commissioner's paying for it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Commissioner. I think that's awesome. What else do we hear?
I think it was really nice to hear him talk about the humility and the importance of networking,
Yeah.
going to others for ideas and pulling them on board. His leadership skills were
Yeah.
wow.
So when Reggie and I met Eric a couple of years ago now, I think we were both impressed with the fact that not only was he open to partnerships, but he was actively creating them with the notion in mind that although he's starting at one prison with a pilot project, that he knows he needs nonprofit leaders in various parts of the state to work and build these construction programs into 5 or 6 different prisons in the state of California.
Well, you actually said he builds time in his schedule to do that.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
that was.
And he said it took a long time to build those relationships. I think he said it took 2 times, like a couple of years. In some cases with leadership, right, that he would need the support, so.
I think we all get guilty sometimes